Today we're going to make one of the most popular recipes on my blog, black bean and quinoa salad. So I love this recipe so much, I almost always have a big batch of it in my refrigerator. And a quinoa salad is so easy to throw together, and it's delicious, and it's also really healthy. So quinoa is actually a seed. It cooks like a grain, so we usually associate it with grains, but it's actually a complete protein, and it's used a lot in healthy cooking. The thing about quinoa is when you cook it, it about doubles and almost triples in size. So if you need 2 cups of cooked quinoa, you want 1 cup of dry quinoa and then to cook it. The other thing I'm going to show you today is how to make the perfectly cooked fluffy quinoa. So quinoa can be a little bit bitter if you don't rinse it. So first we're going to rinse it off, and then we'll cook it with the right amount of water, and it will turn out really fluffy, even better than something like couscous. For this recipe, we need 2 cups of cooked quinoa. So that would be 1 cup of dried quinoa will turn into 2 cups of cooked quinoa. I'm actually going to use 1.5 cups of dried quinoa to think ahead for another recipe later on in the week. It's always great to have a little extra in your refrigerator for other recipes. So first we need to rinse this quinoa. So let as much water drain out of this as you can. And again, rinsing the quinoa just prevents it from having that bitter taste after it's cooked. So we'll put it straight into the pan here. The ratio for quinoa is to do double the amount of water to the quinoa. So for 1.5 cups, I would do 3 cups of water. But here's the trick. Since we just rinsed this, there's already a little bit of water in it. So I'm gonna go just a couple of tablespoons shy of 3 cups, and that's how we'll get our perfectly fluffy quinoa. Over to the stove, I'll just add a healthy pinch of sea salt, and then we'll turn this on. Turn it on high, let this come to a boil, and then turn the heat back to about medium. And you'll have to play with this on your own stove, but you want this at a simmer. The next thing you do is set a kitchen timer for 12 minutes, and you'll have perfectly cooked quinoa. The kitchen timer is your best friend in this case. Now that the quinoa is on the stove, we can start the dressing for our salad. So the dressing for the salad is full of really healthy ingredients, but it also tastes delicious. So the first thing we need is a clove of garlic. And we're going to be serving this raw, so you only need 1 clove because raw garlic is pretty strong. So just break open your clove of garlic. Here's the thing about garlic. A chef would always use a knife to cut garlic, but a health coach or a doctor often uses a garlic press because when you press garlic, you get more surface area on the inside of it. That activates a lot of the enzymes and actually makes it better for you. So I'm going to use a garlic press for this one. Straight into the bottom of the bowl. It'll actually be much stronger too than if I chopped it. So we have our 1 clove of garlic pressed. I'm going to let this sit for just a minute because when we press it, you can kind of see the juice in it. When you press garlic, the longer it sits, the better it gets for you. One of the enzymes called allicin is activated, and it actually gets better for you as it sits. And the juice of 1 lime. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of ground cumin and just 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper is pretty hot, so you can adjust that to how hot you like your quinoa. So into the bottom of the bowl, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and a teaspoon of sea salt. We'll stream in 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And just let that sit while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. Next up, let's get our bell pepper ready. I have a yellow bell pepper and a red bell pepper. You can use any ones that you want. I just like to use both for color. Bell peppers are so good for you. They're really high in vitamin C. They have a ton of fiber, and they're delicious. I like to cut the bell pepper about the size of the black beans, just so everything's about the same size in the salad. All right, so I have my bell pepper all chopped up. I'll just push that to the side. Next, we're going to do our green onions. And this is 2 bunches of green onions right here, so I'll use about half of this. So when you buy green onions, they're also called scallions, at the store, and you bring them home, make sure you get them out of the bag. If you stick them in the bag in your refrigerator, they're gonna get slimy and go bad pretty quickly. If you take them out of the bag and rinse them and store them in some water, they will last for weeks, possibly even months in your refrigerator. So just chop off the root end of your green onions and you can discard those. And we're gonna use the white part and a couple inches of the green parts as well. The white part has the most amount of flavor, but the green part does have flavor. Put that off to the side. So next we'll do our cilantro. So same thing with your fresh herbs, you guys. When you get them home from the grocery store, get them out of the bag, give them a quick rinse, and get them into water. I've already had this for a few days, and I've even had cilantro in my refrigerator for up to a few weeks. It depends on when it was harvested, how long it will keep, but if you store it this way, you'll get a lot longer shelf life out of it. The only one I wouldn't store this way would be basil, because basil actually is a lot more delicate, but parsley or cilantro, so many of your herbs you can put right into a glass jar. So just a handful of cilantro and give it a rough chop. All right, so everything's ready here and our quinoa is just about done. So we'll wait until that's done cooking and we'll put it all together. So our quinoa is done and let's take a look. It is perfectly cooked. So again, because we set the timer for 12 minutes, we have our perfectly cooked quinoa here. If there's any moisture still left in it, you can give it a stir and then pop the lid back on and let it steam a little bit. And if you ever have extra water in your quinoa, just drain it. So this salad is going to come together really fast. And if you remember, we made extra quinoa to save for later in the week. I have about 3 cups of cooked quinoa here. So I'm just gonna put a cup in this bowl to save it. And when you're cooking, especially something like quinoa, it's always great to think ahead and try to cook something healthy for later on in the week that you can just really easily throw together. Quinoa is so good in salads and so many different recipes, it's always great to have on hand. And it will keep in your refrigerator for about a week. All right, so let's put this together. So I have 2 cans of black beans that I drained and rinsed. And I really like to drain and rinse my black beans because just in case there's any extra salt on them, it'll take the extra salt off, and I actually think they taste better as well. So we have our dressing that's been sitting here with the garlic marinating. This is going to be so good. Let's just put everything into the bowl. And our 2 cups of black beans. And let's get all of our veggies in. We've got our bell peppers and our scallions and cilantro. This smells so good. Okay, now that it's all in, we just need to toss it together. And because that quinoa is warm, it's just soaking up all of the good flavor. So this salad is actually good warm or room temperature or cold. I actually prefer it a little chilled, and I think it tastes better the longer it sits. So especially if I'm taking it to a party, I'll usually do it the night before. This is such great party food because this is a massive bowl of food and it will feed so many people. All right, let's just taste it. We have to taste it, make sure it seasoned well. A little bit of everything. Very good. A little bit more salt. Give it another toss. Delicious. So if you guys want to print this recipe, head on over to my blog at elizabethrider.com and search for black bean and quinoa salad. I'll see you guys next time.